Hello, everyone. I'm Larry Flowers, the Public Safety Public Information Officer for the City of Murfreesboro. Today's guests include Murfreesboro Police Department Administrative Division Captain Don Fanning and Murfreesboro Fire Rescue Department Captain Shift Instructor Mitch Whittenburg. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you, Larry.
AEDs are known to save lives. Murfreesboro Fire Rescue Department already have AEDs on all of their fire apparatus. Now, the Murfreesboro Police Department is in the process of issuing all uniformed officers an AED. So now they have the power to save lives right in their patrol cars. The first question is for you, Captain Whittenburg. For those who don't know, what are AEDs?
AEDs, automatic external defibrillators. So what they do is when you have a person that's in cardiac arrest, we can put that AED on a patient and hopefully regain a pulse out of an electric shock. So the way that kind of looks is a lot of times when people go into cardiac arrest, they'll be in an abnormal cardiac rhythm. And our AEDs, they look for two of those abnormal rhythms. They look for VFib or pulseless VTAC. So if the heart's in one of those rhythms, the best thing that we can do for them is deliver that electric shock. So there's a lot of kind of ways that we can look at that, but what it tries to do, and the misconception with a lot of people with AEDs is, one, that it tries to jumpstart the heart. Okay. And it's not that way. The heart has to have an electrical rhythm in it to be able to shock. So really, it's time is what we work against a lot of times with these AEDs or with cardiac arrest in general, is getting a defibrillator on somebody fast. Mm-hmm. That needs to be our main goal.
So. Sure. And Captain Fanning, why are AEDs being added to patrol cars?
Well, as I've told people before, if it's your loved one who's suffering from this cardiac event, you don't care what uniform somebody's wearing when they walk in your door. What you care about is, how do you save my loved one's life? And so the thing about police officers, is we have a lot of units that are constantly moving around the city. The fire department, their units are fixed, and they have time it takes to get there. Well, with us having AEDs in our car, the goal being that a lot of times we may be there sooner than the fire department, just because the very nature of us roaming around the city, and because we have so many people there, it just adds to the number of AEDs in the city. We work together like a hand in a glove. They have some. If they get there first, that's great. And then you add some more that we have. If we get there first, great. We don't care which uniform or which truck, whether it's a blue car or a red car, it doesn't matter. We just want to get there quickly with an AED, because this is the thing that gives people the power to save a life.
Sure. Just to follow up on there, how will the addition of these AEDs impact the chances of survival, for a person who may be experiencing cardiac arrest, sure, with police officers having these devices in their car?
Well, literally, minutes means the difference between life or death. When we're talking about someone who's pulseless, who's in a cardiac arrest kind of event, the American Heart Association talks about, the percentage of brain function and cells that you lose. It's literally seconds and minutes make the difference. So every time you reduce, or in other words, you add a minute of response time, I think the average yield is about 10% survivability rate, thereabouts. And so if you think about that, if somebody gets there 2 minutes earlier than somebody else, well, that's a bigger chance of you surviving. So that's kind of important to us.
Sure. Let's talk training. Captain Whittenburg, of course, you're certified. Certified instructor in AED, CPR. Understand that you've been training some of these Murfreesboro police officers to properly use this device. Just talk about what that training entails.
Yeah, so every 2 years, the police department, same as the fire department, they have to go through a recertification process. Most everybody around the country, especially dealing with healthcare, uses the American Heart Association, their standard. And every 5 years, AHA looks at that. American Heart Association looks at that standard and looks at the data that they've collected over the last 5 years and see what's working and what might work better next time to change that standard. So, like I said, every 2 years when they go through that training, there may be updates or things like that that we work in there. CPR in general, I think I took my first CPR class, I was like in 5th grade. We still do compressions and we give breaths. So they change the rate, they change the depth, things like that, the ratios. Now we really try to fine tune our CPR, what works. Minimizing the time that somebody's not on the chest doing compressions, minimizing the time that it takes us to get an AED there, whatever it may be. So we're really focusing on that, what the data is showing right now, and the data really shows that minimizing the time that you're not on the chest is the biggest factor, and early defibrillation.
Just to follow up a little more on that training, what do you teach these officers in class?
We go over everything. We go over so AHA splits it into kind of 3 parts as far as age categories. You have adult, you also have children, and you have infants. And then we also talk about our AEDs, our breathing devices that we may use, whether it's a pocket mask or a BVM, something like that. And then it also talks about choking. And then we also, there's also a section in there talking specifically about Narcan that we talk about in the class. So we go through all age groups, talk about using the AED on all age groups, along with different maneuvers to provide ventilations to the patients.
Sure. And I understand this device is pretty simple to use.
Absolutely.
Why don't you guys show us how it's done?
It's as easy as this. So once we know there's an event, somebody brings an AED to the location, all the first thing to do is you just take the top right off here. Mitch?
Next thing, all you're going to do is turn it on. That's the beauty of these devices, is once you turn the device on, it walks you through the other steps. Okay, so as long as you can hear it, actually the AEDs that are going to be on the units themselves have a LCD screen right here that will actually tell them also what to do. So there's a readout along with the verbal what's going on, or what they need to do next. So you turn it on and then you follow the prompts. So
automatic defibrillator. Unit okay.
So it's telling you your unit's okay.
Check responsiveness.
Okay.
Call for help.
We're going to check responsiveness.
Attach defib pads to patient's bare chest.
We are the help, right? So we're going to place the pads on the patient. Once the device senses that the pads have been placed on the patient, it's going to start analyzing. Okay?
It usually takes about 10 seconds.
Don't touch patient. Analyzing. Don't touch patient. Shock will be delivered in 3, 2, 1. Shock delivered. Start CPR.
So it's going to give you a metronome there at what rate you should be doing your compressions. Okay. So another thing about the AEDs that the police department has, they're fully automatic. Okay. So the best feature about that is that there is no thinking whether you need to shock that person or not. It analyzes that rhythm. If there's a shock that needs to be delivered, it's going to tell you to clear the patient, and then it's going to automatically deliver that shock for you.
So basically, it would not shock someone who
won't
does
help.
not need shocking.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the beauties of this as well, is that it can't hurt somebody that it won't help. Even if you wanted to shock somebody, you can't. If this machine says they're in a rhythm that it won't help, it won't shock them, but it will give you further instructions about how to continue CPR, to give you a metronome about how fast you need to be doing CPR. There's visual indicators on here. Not only do you have the voice, you got a screen, but also as you look at the top of these, you'll see different lights come on to tell you what step you should be at. Literally, 2nd and 3rd graders could use this machine. That's why, if you've not noticed lately, you see them in schools, libraries, public recreation centers, airports. More and more often that we see this as a life-saving device that needs to be within reach of everybody.
So basically, they're safe to use.
Yeah, you can't
Absolutely.
mess it up.
Absolutely.
Can't mess it up.
The technology also that is brought into these machines now is great. One of the things that AHA, or one of the programs that they added into the AHA curriculum this time, was what they call the CPR coach. Basically, somebody standing there saying, "Hey, you're doing good compressions. You need to push deeper. You need to push faster. Whatever it may be." This does a lot of that for you. So with these pads and that LCD screen that's on there, when you do compressions on these pads, there's going to be a little indicator here of how deep your compression is. So it's going to show you in real time how good you're doing compressions. Okay. It's also going to coach you. It's going to say, push harder, push faster, good compressions. If you're off the chest for too long, it's going to tell you to continue compressions, whatever it may be. So this is your CPR coach.
Okay.
So-
okay.
The technology has really evolved from when these first started. Years ago we would have them, and you didn't have any of that kind of feedback, and you had to manually tell it when to shock, and those things in today's world, that's not, because I look back, when I grew up as a kid, Squad 51 was on the air, and you saw people getting defibrillated, and that was you always see the big paddles where they're rubbing them together and they're sticking them on the chest, and 1970s technology, that's right. But now we have updated that technology. We've put it into cars. They're very durable. They can ride around. The back of a police car is not always a friendly environment. We drive and we go over bumps, and there's equipment in our trunks, and yet these things still continue to work, and they use amazing technology.
So I guess CPR and these AEDs work hand in hand. So you can look at it as CPR buys time, but the AED save lives.
That is exactly right. That's why we encourage people in the public, not those who are in the profession like we are, but even the general public, to go out and get training. The American Heart Association has a whole plan today that in today's world, a lot of people are worried about, as we all do, communicable diseases and things like that. So they have a program where you can do hands-only CPR, and just knowing what to start doing until people arrive with an AED is a huge factor in survivability. So the more that the public knows just basic CPR, again, CPR buys time, so we can get the AED there. That's what will save their life.
And Captain Whittenburg, what is the success rate of using automatic external defibrillators on cardiac arrest patients?
Right. So nationally speaking, you got about a 10 to 12% survival rate. Okay. And that is nationwide. The other statistic that I add in there is how many of those come out of the hospital neurologically intact. And the reason I like to focus on that is because I don't want just a number to say, hey, I'm going to get 10% back. I want to see how many people are going to come home to their family, right? So the national average on that is about half of the survivability. So you take that 10 to 12% down to 5 to 6%, but you're talking about other departments that have longer response times, things like that, than Murfreesboro does. So I'm really hoping that through the data that we can collect with our reporting system and things like that now, that we really see an uptake on how many of those people are surviving, one, and then two, coming out neurologically intact.
As I can tell you, one of the things that we looked at when we were considering doing this were some cities who had done pilot programs for their police agencies to do this, and they had a really good success rate in changing that number, from 10% to a much better percentage. And we tell people it's not a magic wand. Sometimes people have cardiac events that just aren't salvageable. They're not survivable, I guess is a better way to put that. But these are your best chance for survival. And again, if that's somebody I care about laying there on the floor, I want every chance for their survival.
Exactly. So, Captain Fanning, who would be responsible, I guess, for servicing these machines that are in the police cars, considering, like you said, they're driving down, equipment bouncing around? Who's responsible for maintaining?
Right. So, as part of our agreement with the companies, which is Zoll is the manufacturer there, we have a local rep here and a local company here that, if there's a problem, they take care of it. We give it to them, and they'll repair it and send us a new one. It's no problem.
Okay. And Captain Whittenburg, how long do they last, I guess, before you need to replace a unit like this?
So most of the time, we look at it as far as warranty life, right? So these come with a 7 to 8 year warranty. And the reason we look at it that way is because, it's a medical device. Two, it's a computer. Okay. When I talk to people about AEDs and people wanting to replace older ones or things like that, or hold on to the old ones, the computer that's on your desk isn't 8 years old, right? Why do you want the piece of machinery that can ultimately save your life to be old technology? Right. They come up with new stuff all the day or every day. I wouldn't suggest changing them every year, but the technology that's in them now is great. Adding the feedback, the real-time feedback has been huge. We on the fire apparatus, we carry cardiac monitors, which is just a little bit more advanced version of this. It's just a little bit bigger. It can do a few more things for our paramedics and things like that. But it has feedback on it as well, and we go back and we use that in training and several different aspects to say, okay, this is where we're doing real good. This is where we need to do a little bit better. So they can see that real time with these units. With our units, same thing. It's great. The compatibility between them. If we have an officer there, they've got an AED on the patient, we come in, we want to put them on our cardiac monitor. We literally unplug the pads and plug them straight into our monitor. We don't have to pull pads off. We don't have to swap anything out. It's literally plug and play.
Again, that was one of the factors we looked at in selecting this one, was compatibility, because again, we work hand in hand with the fire department, and we wanted that compatibility feature between us. So it makes things smoother and easier with the patients that we're going to take care of. We want the best possible outcome for people, and it's just one of those factors.
And as technology evolves, I guess they're pretty cost effective, aren't they?
They really, if you look at them over time, and I tell people, how much is my loved one's life worth? And that's the thing. I mean, there's no such thing as unlimited money, but we look at the cost and the value for things, and we really feel like these are a life-saving device, and we want the people in our city to have the very best chance for survival.
Sure. Now, what about accessibility to these units in the patrol car? Will they be in the back? Will they be in the front? Where are you guys recommending officers put them for accessibility?
Most of the time, officers will keep these in the back of their car along with all their other equipment. Obviously, our officers carry a lot of different kinds of equipment, just like the fire department does. Depends on what the problem is they're trying to address. But most of the time, they will probably stay in the back of the car. That's a conditioned airspace. Because we have a lot of the other equipment we have back there that has to be temperature controlled, and that helps with these as well. Sure.
And Captain Whittenburg, is there a difference between this unit and I guess a traditional one?
No, not really. This particular unit, the Zoll AED Plus, has been around for a long time. They upgraded a few years ago these units to where you could get them in fully automatic versions, but this particular unit has been around for a long time. They've just kind of upgraded, throughout the years. As far as a normal AED, there's several different brands out there, several different models. Some also offer the feedback as well, but as far as AED preferences or anything like that, we love the Zoll products. The biggest thing to me with them or one of the large things is they're manufactured here in the United States. They're manufactured in Boston. Their pads, I think, are manufactured like in Virginia or something like that. So the accessibility to them has been great versus some of the other companies out there. Of course, during COVID and things like that, everybody got hit with shortages on different things, and Zoll has been the one that you've been able to get product from. You've been able to get their units, you've been able to get their pads, where some other ones, you're not able to get that stuff. So,
and I guess you have to take your hat off to our city leaders. I mean, anytime fire or police go to our city officials and say, hey, this will benefit the citizens of the city of Murfreesboro, I mean, they don't hesitate.
No, they've been
As
really
they
good.
did with this, they approved the funding for these units. Just, talk about their support.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time researching before we decided, we wanted to do this. Mitch and I spent a lot of days sitting in the office going over features, and we also looked at cost when we were trying to decide what's the best product and what's the best value. And I have to tell you, from the word go, when we started approaching this as an issue and talking to people in city management, our city manager and then our city council and those folks and the mayor, they were 100%, behind us. Hey, whatever we can do to take care of the people in our city, they were very happy. So they saw the value in it.
Sure.
Most of our city facilities, if not all, I just can't speak to all of them, right? But most, if not all, of our city facilities have AEDs at them that are accessible, whether it be City Hall. I know there's one there. Of course, the police department, fire department, and then our parks and things like that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we had a save out at the park last year with one. Having those accessible, the airport has them, things like that. Having them accessible to the citizens and stuff like that, not just for, responders. It needs to be accessible for the citizens because, like we talked about earlier, you're not going to hurt somebody with this. If you put it on them and they don't need a shock, it's not going to give them one. Okay, so having that accessible for somebody that took a CPR class 2 or 3 years ago and said, hey, I need to put an AED on them. That's right. So put the AED on them. If they need a shock, it's there for them. If not, it's okay.
And you had mentioned save at one of the parks. I believe one of our officers, without calling his name, benefited from a device like this at an event in one of our city parks.
You're exactly right. He was there doing what he does, which is loving on some kids, and he was in need. And hey man, what more do you need to say? We look out for the people in our city, and sometimes the people in our city are the people that wear a blue uniform too.
Wow. Yeah, that was amazing. It was amazing to hear him come back to work and tell the story and how firefighters was right there because they were participating in that event as well and pretty much saved his life. And it's good that he's still here with us today doing well.
He is. He's doing very well.
Yeah. I guess, are there any drawbacks or potential limitation for having these in our cars?
I don't think so. I mean, again, we tell people, this is it's not a magic box. There are some people that this won't help. And so that's a limitation. We don't want to give people unrealistic expectations from this. It doesn't save everybody. But really, no. We try to take care of the things that we get. And part of our class when we're teaching our officers, when Mitch has been in there, as we talk to them about these things are in a nice padded case and it's protected, but it's not indestructible. But no, we really see it as a win for everybody. And we really do.
Sure. And is there anything else about AEDs, the benefit of adding them to the patrol cars, and that you two would like to say to wrap things up?
The big benefit to me is when you look at, because that's all we have to go off of is statistics, right? So we have to look at data. We have to look at, where it takes us. And statistics show that for every minute that somebody doesn't have CPR going on and they don't have an AED on, their chances of survival decrease by 10%. Okay, so by having them in the patrol cars and getting them there even a minute faster than a fire truck or ambulance or whatever it is, you're saving that 10%, right? So that I hope is gonna show its benefit, over the next year or so, to where we can really come back and say, look, we proved it. So that's what I really hope out of the program. I hope it is around to stay, and it's gonna make some big impacts here in Murfreesboro.
Any final words?
Well, I think right now, Mitch, if I'm not wrong, I think we've got about 30 units already out in our cars right now as we speak, and as we go throughout this year, as we train officers, we'll continue to issue those out throughout the rest of the year. And our goal is by the end of this year to to have them in every uniformed marked patrol car. And I tell people, you know, I've been around a while, and I think of all the times that I've done CPR on people, and now I look back over my history and think, man, I wish we had had these then. Man, how many people could we have saved? But I do look forward to the future and seeing the people that we're going to save.
We appreciate you guys joining us. We've been discussing how the Murfreesboro Fire Rescue Department and the Murfreesboro Police Department are working together in training police officers on the proper use of AEDs now that all uniform officers will have them in their patrol cars. The Public Safety Podcast originates from the Murfreesboro Police Department headquarters. Thanks for listening via Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Amazon Music Audible. You can also watch the podcast on YouTube and City TV 3. The podcast is produced by Michael Nevels with assistance from Steve Burris. For more information on public safety and the fast-growing city of Murfreesboro, you can visit our website, www.murfreesborotn.gov. Until next time, I'm Larry Flowers.